Everything except the law will begin after a brief word from Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our virtual receptionist team.
I heard horror stories of how practices handled their calls and it didn't seem efficient. I chose Answering Legal right when I started my practice. It was one of the best decisions regarding the Harrison firm. Answering Legal allows me to spend more time with my children, my husband. I don't have to worry about losing clients or calls because I know that they're there to pick up the phone when I'm not. The Harrison firm would not be as successful as it is without Answering Legal.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Answering Legal's Everything Except the Law podcast. I am your host, Nick Werker. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we share expert advice on all the parts of running a law firm that attorneys weren't exactly trained for back in law school. Now, my guest today is a visionary entrepreneur, the managing partner of his own law firm, and an attorney coach. That's a busy, busy guy. Earlier this year, he released a book entitled Love Your Law Firm, A Roadmap to the Law Firm You've Always Wanted. Today, we'll be talking about how lawyers can enjoy a successful practice and a life outside their firm, too. Imagine that. Jordan Ostroff joins me now. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Jordan.
Hey, thanks for having me. But I want to push back on the busy guy line just because I think we have this crazy concept as lawyers where we have to constantly be busy, even though we're doing nothing productive. So I want to fight against that. Let's not be busy. Let's be productive. Let's make good impacts instead of just constantly billing, killing ourselves 0.1 hours at a time.
I like your pushback there. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey working in law?
Sure. So I wanted to be a lawyer for as long as I can remember, having no idea what that is. And even some days today, I still have no idea what that really means. But there's home videos of me at 4 years old arguing with my family and telling them I wanted to be a lawyer. So started out as a prosecutor, then opened up my own firm doing criminal defense, and then through a series of ass backwards successes and no intentionality on the mistakes, I found myself $200,000 in debt, working 1 million hours a week, being completely miserable. And my wife told me she was pregnant with our first child after about a year of us struggling through that, which is probably related to the working 100 hours a week and being totally miserable. And so I committed myself to changing that. And now I try to help other lawyers create their version of my success, hopefully without the rock bottom awfulness of the first 3 or 4 years.
I feel like that's the story of a lot of lawyers who just have this aspiration from childhood. So I had the same thing. My family was always like, oh, you always argue. You're going to be such a good lawyer. You're going to be a politician. You're going to do this. And with no intentionality whatsoever, I set out to do that. So I'm curious, because I think you covered this in your book, but what made you want to write Love Your Law Firm?
That's a great question. So it actually started out as personal therapy of just journaling how awful it was. Thankfully, I started making the steps to figure out how to go from hating it to really loving my law firm. And so by the end of it, the book became a roadmap to help other people hopefully avoid a lot of my pitfalls, but still create their own journeys that they could genuinely enjoy.
I love that. So what have been some of the most important adjustments that you've made to the way you've run your practice over the years?
The biggest thing for me was being intentional. My kid was born March 2nd of 2018. So somewhere in the middle of 2017, my wife has, told me she was pregnant. She actually put it on a hot sauce bottle because I love hot sauce. It was the hot daddy. She made a label and stuff.
So you're the hot daddy. I love that.
There we go. And then first 10 seconds, super happy. Oh, thank God. We'd been struggling for so long to get pregnant. And now he's 6. So that story has a happy ending too, or happy beginning too. And then within 10 or 15 seconds, I was like, how the hell are we going to do this? We're miserable. We're $200,000 in debt. We have no time. Someone's going to hand us a baby. And so the first thing was us having this really honest conversation. My wife is an attorney. She committed to actually being a great lawyer, and I committed to taking over our practice and from a business standpoint. Like at that point, we had, I think, 15 people and 5 lawyers, but like everybody was doing a little bit of everything, and there was no real like accountability chart, and there was no, focus from anybody. And so that's why I say like the unintentional mistakes. So we did a lot right to get to 15 people, but ultimately like it was terrible until I started getting intentional about what I wanted, and she got intentional about what she wanted, and we got intentional about the firm that we wanted. And then, everybody else found either the right spots at the firm or, moved on, but with a much better understanding of what we were trying to build and a real vision and all of those things. That I think is the biggest thing that has helped with my success now.
So I want to expand on what you were just saying, because I was here in Answering Legal on like day 2, I like to say. And when you're like a startup, I feel like it's always like, I hate to use the term bootstrap, but everybody sort of has all of these responsibilities and nobody has none. And so it can get a little chaotic of this person is doing this and is also responsible for this. So like the marketing guy is on sales calls, and why is it's so hectic. So I'm curious to hear about like your accountability chart and how you sort of manage this in your law firm, but also like, how did you even realize that you needed to set something like that up?
I don't know the answer to that question. I can tell you we knew that what we were doing was not working, which was everybody dabbling. And so I can't tell you exactly what was like, hey, let's actually commit to doing 1 job or 2 jobs instead of half-assing 12 jobs. But thankfully we agreed, and thankfully we committed to stuff we liked, and thankfully it's worked out after that. Because like the thing is, 1, there's 168 hours in a week for everybody. So like, let's say even if you're working 100 hours in that 168 hours a week, which is awful and miserable and don't do it. But even if you are, if you're doing 3 full-time jobs, that's 120 hours that you're cramming into 100. If you're doing 4 full-time jobs, that's 160 that you're cramming into 100. So like, I see so many lawyers mad at themselves, like, why can't I get better at this? But ultimately, like, they're doing a 40-hour-a-week job in 8 hours because they're doing 6 of them, 7 of them, 8 of them. And so like the more that you commit to those things, and again, I say like 1 or 2 real jobs, that's what focuses your ability to get better. So for example, like my wife goes to a lot of Be a Great Trial Attorney conferences. Like she went to Ryan McKean's $100 million verdict. I love Ryan. That's not a conference for me to go to, because that was like, hey, here's how we did this $100 million case. That's what she does. For me, like I'm going to the how to build a law firm, how to market a law firm, how to run a law firm conferences. I stopped reading case law because I don't have to go to court. So instead of that, I read 175 books last year instead of reading every new case that came out for every personal injury case in Florida across the entire state, because I don't need to worry about that. Whereas like my wife can tell you, hey, Judge so-and-so was the dissenting opinion on this case and this, whatever, because she can focus on those things. And the same thing goes down the whole line. I have 1 staff member who's responsible for all of our stuff in Lawmatics. I have 1 staff member who's responsible for all our stuff in Practice Panther. So they go to the webinars that get put on, and so like you can really focus on learning, and then you get more reps. If everybody does 2 sales calls, you don't get better that quickly. If 1 person does 10 sales calls a week, it's 5 times faster for them to get better at them. And so like, there's such a benefit to really focusing in so many different ways. And yet we get pissed off at ourselves because we can't do everything ourselves in the time that we have allotted, when really we're doing the work of 10 people, 15 people, 20 people.
Big shout out to Devin at Lawmatics, who does all the webinars. I just did a webinar with them, and it was a lot of fun. We're scheduling another one. So whoever from your law firm was there, hi again. I want to ask about proper work-life balance, because we're talking about taking 168 hours and trying to cram it into 40, or you're trying to take like 5 jobs and cram it into 168 hours while also trying to sleep. So how can lawyers get to this point of having, I know like proper work-life balance is not the term anymore. It's like a proper work balance. What are some of the first steps that they can take?
So there's 2 different ways to go about this. There's the fun way and there's the realistic way. So the fun way is you just sit down with, I've got an Excel spreadsheet that does all the hours in a week, and you just like map out what an ideal week would look like. And this isn't necessarily like sitting on the beach in Bali. this is like legitimately to handle everything I need to do. What do I need? And so I tell lawyers, like, look, if you're going to commit to 40 hours a week, give yourself a 20% buffer. So book 32 work hours. So like, what are the 32 1-hour blocks of work that I have to do every week, and put them on the calendar? And then, you want to sleep for 7 to 9 hours a day. Great. Your kid goes to school, put that on the calendar, put travel time on the calendar. You want to get home at 5? Great. Map off your calendar at 4:30 and like really see what you truly have time for. Because the thing is, like, we get the opportunity to speak to our local bar association in 8 weeks, and we look at our calendar and it's totally blank, and we say yes. But then 2 days before, we realize we didn't do the presentation, and we have a hearing that's set for the next day, and we have a client who's pissed off about this, and we have all these other things. So like, the more you can get those repetitive tasks on, better. The more realistic way to do this, though, is I call it a time audit. So you audit your time for 2 weeks, and then, what did I do? How long did it take? Did it give me energy or suck my energy? And how easy is it for me to delegate? And then you're like, hey, I hate checking my email. That's a -5 energy, and I could delegate 80% of my emails pretty quickly. That's an 8. Great. Now you hire an assistant and you pawn off your email, and now you go from 8 hours, whatever, let's say 4 hours a day of email, to 30 minutes a day. And now you have 3.5 hours back. And so then, like, if you're working 80 hours and you want to work less, I tell you to wedge your time. So take half of that time and make sure that's committed to working out, watching Netflix, playing golf, whatever it is, and then put the other half back into work, and keep doing that wedge until you get to where you want to be. So it's really a question of like, how much control do you have over the ability to start with the ideal versus having to just work on what are the small things you can take off your plate now if you're already drowning in work.
I need to do this time audit so that I make more time to actually go golfing. I've been golfing one time this year, and it was way too much fun, and now I'm back addicted to golfing. So when you said that, now all I'm going to think about for the rest of this beautiful day is golfing.
Well, and look, Nick, from what you do, go find 3 other lawyers near you, go golfing, pick up the tab, and see how many of them are answering legal. Like, it's amazing to me how we can do this multi-impact of all these things, but instead of like, I got to sit at the desk and .1 my life for the next 30 years.
Yeah, that sounds dreadful when you put it like that. But I want to talk about delegation. And I think people get caught up in that delegation means that you have to give a task to a specific person and you have to hire a person. And some lawyers might be hiring averse, or maybe they're just starting out. So I want to ask what key investments you've made in like technologies or services that have made a big difference for you and have helped limit your time working.
Okay, so look, if you have a Google account, you have Google Meet. I'm sure Microsoft has Teams. You can record Google Meet. I'm sure you can record Teams, or buy Loom. It's like $5 a month. And so now, like, you can record yourself doing a task. You can screen share, you can record it, you can talk yourself through it. And so for me, when I'm delegating something, I fire up a Google Meet, the other person's in it or not. I turn on the recording, I go through it, I verbalize what I'm doing. As you can see it on the screen, it will also make a transcript if you click one button. The transcript's like pretty good. It's better than Otter.ai most of the time. And so now I have a video, I have my audio of it, and I have a transcript. And then I send it to the person. I'm like, hey, try this whatever legitimate number of times. Like if it's paying my state tax, which is once a year, not going to be something. But if it's filing this document that we file 15 times a week, great. Run through it 15 times. And then let me know what questions you have. Let me know what feedback. Let me know if you can think of any way to do it faster, better, more efficiently. If anything you're not sure of, whatever. Now, you're going to go through it again. You're going to screen record yourself. You're going to verbalize what you're doing. You're going to be responsible for your transcript. And then you're going to take all that information and you're going to throw it into Tetra or Tranual or a Google Doc. I don't care what it is, but it's in one place. And now you're responsible for that task. Anytime it gets updated, you're responsible for a new video, but now you have the whole thing. And then we set whatever reminder on when to review it. That might be like, if we're trying something new for intake, great. In 3 months, are my close rates the same or higher? If not, I can go back to the old way. If it's something where it's client communication, great. If 3 clients complain about this in the next 6 months, we're going to go back to the old way. If it's KPI, if we don't hit the KPI, we're going to go back into this system. Whatever it is, like come up with that follow-up sequence, and then that's it. Like it's done. It's on to somebody else. And then ultimately you still have that one catch on the impact of it. Does it change the sales numbers? Do clients complain about it? Does it get us to the KPIs that we want? And now you haven't abdicated this task, but you have somebody who can do it, and you have a recording. So if that person, God forbid, quits tomorrow or goes missing or gets sick or whatever, like the stuff's still there with how to do it. It may take somebody else running through it 3 to 5 times to get up to speed, but like you have a video, you have an audio, you have a transcript.
So I just want to thank you so much, because that is the single best answer on delegation I've ever gotten, on asking so many people about delegation on this podcast. And you actually just laid it out. This is how you delegate a task. This is how I delegate a task. So I actually got lucky because I get executive coaching. And years ago, I had a developer who worked for us, and he left to, pursue another opportunity, went back to school, got a bigger, better, fancier development job, because it's just like website development here. He went on to do crazy app development, all that. Very smart guy. But I had him write up a document on, and this is going to sound silly, but one of the technologies that we needed to use was like more complicated than I could do as just like copy and pasting and posting a blog. It was for posting a blog. And he had written up this standard operating procedure on how to actually post a blog post. So throughout like the new hires that we've made, I have this SOP for how to post a blog post, because I simply don't have time to write a blog post and post a blog post all the time. And I've recycled this document and nobody has any questions with it. And I had that before this person left us. So I just find what you're saying to be actually true and actually helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And look, the funny thing is, you're like, hey, this is a low level task. And I'm sitting here like, that's the easiest one to have an SOP to get to anybody. Like it's amazing to me. We get caught in this concept of like, oh, we're artists. Like I have to make this crazy lawyer argument. Fine. Then don't SOP like what you do in trial. SOP getting all the documents together for you. SOP communicating with the client beforehand. SOP getting the information back to the client afterwards and taking the next steps, and allow you to actually focus on doing the art, in whatever semblance that is. So like the basic things are the easier ones to create a policy and procedure for, so that you can actually focus on the magic sauce, the secret sauce, the whatever you want to call it.
You just fired me up. I drink a lot of coffee, and coffee is like gasoline, and you just like threw a match on me, and now I'm really, really fired up.
There we go.
So I want to shift towards marketing.
No, I'm just kidding.
Say again?
No, it was like, now that you're all revved up, thank you for your time. We'll see you later.
Oh, no, don't do that. No, I'm raring to go now. But I want to shift towards marketing. So in your book, you detailed how you were getting some rather poor marketing guidance during the early days of your practice. And I think this is true for a lot of people in the early days of their practices, because a lot of lawyers will look at like the marketing 101 or the SEO law firm 101. And that doesn't really teach you anything besides like to sign up for some newsletter and get spam emails from these terrible, terrible people. What did you learn from these early interactions with marketing agencies? And how can lawyers really know if an agency that they want to work with or that they're working with is one that they can actually trust?
Okay, so the biggest thing that I learned is marketing and sales are two very different things, and very few companies will advise you on both of those. But if you don't have a solid sales process that matches your reporting, marketing is almost pointless, because the months that you're not busy and you call everybody back and you sign a bunch of cases and then you get busy and you stop calling people back and then you don't, you think the marketing's terrible. The marketing did not change at all. Your sales process is what changed. So I think like that was half of my problem, was I didn't have any consistent sales process, and I didn't come across a marketing company that cared to ask those questions. In terms of how do you know your marketing company is trustworthy? Listen, here at the end of the day, it's about results. Like they could be the nicest people in the entire world, but if they don't get you the results you're expecting, it doesn't matter. There's nothing else to trust. Obviously, if they are getting the results, you still want to be able to trust they're doing it ethically. So, that's a twofold process. So what ends up happening is like, to every marketing company listening to this, you need to set expectations. And I'm totally fine if that's like, hey, I need to run this way for 3 months and build a baseline, and then I'll show you how we build above our baseline once we know what you're already doing. That's fine with me. It's all these like new lawyers that have $500 a month to spend, and a marketing company wants a $250 management fee, and then they're only running ads on the other half of it, and then they don't send enough ads for the lawyer to know what's going on, but they don't tell the lawyer that that's the problem. And like, so it's this roundabout process where I think everybody ends up being miserable, because the marketing company will, some marketing companies will take too small a fee because the lawyers don't have it, but then the lawyers will never build towards more of it because they don't get any benefit from it. And then they end up jaded about marketing in general, when really the issue is they started doing a certain marketing method too soon.
Can you sort of like anecdotally tell us about how you discovered this in your law firm? Like, what were some of the key marketing mistakes that you were able to correct, and how do you sort of approach marketing today?
Sure. So I'm going to actually start with the one thing, the two things I did really well. So I came up to Orlando to go to the University of Central Florida. I stayed in Orlando for law school. I was a prosecutor in Orlando, and I opened my firm in Orlando. So I had like a 10-year run. I also did mock trial at UCF and at my law school at Barry. And so like that was a bunch of other people that became lawyers. We were attorneys were our coaches. Judges came in and worked with us. So like had a good network. I wish I had thought of it that way the entire process, instead of being a raging asshole for somewhere between like 5 and all 10 of those years, depending upon who you ask. So that was helpful. And then the other thing is, when I first started my firm, I was like, hey, I'm going to go to all the fraternities and sororities at UCF, and I'm going to do a presentation on like how not to get arrested, because like they're not going to listen to me, and then like they'll know me. And so I wish I've got them in the next room. I have these, it's red, like the Ray-Ban style sunglasses with bottle cap openers on the back with the firm information on them. And so I passed those out, and I was like, hey, fake IDs, these are the things to consider. Marijuana, this is the stuff to consider. Alcohol underage, these are the things to consider. And I did like a whole presentation. And it actually worked out really well. There was somebody who called me like 3 years later and was like, hey man, I just did not get arrested right now because of you, so thank you so much. And I was like, well, that was cool. Because obviously a lot of people called us from that. I wish I had been smart about it though. Like, Nick, you laugh. I was just like, these are people that might have this issue. I never didn't do a retargeting campaign for them. Pandora was huge at that point. Didn't start running Pandora ads to support what I did. Like, I didn't have the focus of this whole like marketing concept. I was just like, oh, I can go talk to these people for free and this will be great. And it was. I wish I'd taken that same thought process like 2 steps farther, and then put together a newsletter for them and let them know like, this is what's going on at UCF. And like the police announce roadblocks like, hey, we're doing DUI stops. Like, this is where they're located. I could have emailed that out to all the fraternities every 90 days with like, these are the upcoming, stops in the area. Like, pay attention to it. Here's a way to, remember me. Like, never did that stuff. So now, like when I do marketing, I really think about like an entire campaign. So my law firm, now we do PI, not criminal defense. And we're really focused on like teachers, realtors, PTA parents, like those blue collar professionals who truly care about the service they get. All of our stuff goes there. So all of our events are family friendly. Bring your kids, bring your spouses, like let's have fun stuff. So we did a Cinco de Mayo party because it's my birthday on Cinco de Mayo. So we do that every year. And we had like inflatable axe throwing. So from like 5 to 7, the kids thought it was the most fun thing. And then from like 7 to 9, the parents were like, I had enough tequila. Like, I want to throw the, and they weren't real axes. It was like a Velcro and stuff from that. But everyone's like, nobody does family friendly events. We're like, right, because like a bunch of lawyers can get together and drink, but we can't bring our kids. And so now like your spouse gets to know us, your kids get to know us. And God forbid, your like 6 to 10-year-old has trouble with the law. But like by making it more of a family thing, it's a lot easier to have a genuine connection, because it's not like 2 lawyers getting hammered at a bar next to each other. It's 2 families interacting. And that appeals to our ideal client, and it makes sense from what we like. And my kid gets to meet new friends, and we get to find new couple friends. Like, it's so much more fun than what everybody else is doing, because it fits me and it fits the brand and it fits our market. Like, find where all those things intersect and just commit everything you can to that, instead of scattershotting, buying leads over here and running a couple ads over here and doing some stuff over here. And just like commit to something that makes sense.
I love everything you're talking about. And I thought DUI checkpoints were a myth. I had never run into a DUI checkpoint until about 2 years ago. I got pulled into a DUI checkpoint, and I'm stone cold sober. So I'm like, I'm good. You know, when you're not doing anything wrong, you're like, oh, this is going to be easy. I can't get in trouble. So it gets my turn. I go up, and the cop, and I was a little like fired up because I really thought that this was really cool. So I really annoyed this cop who was like, I don't know, got to be tired of dealing with people all night. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was coming home from a cigar event, and like we were just, it was a networking cigar event. And the cop is like, where are you coming from? I was like, a cigar bar. And he's like, a bar? And I'm like, no, just cigars, just smoking cigars. And I like talked myself into trouble because of how like idiotic I can be. And it turns out that I had nothing to drink, and that I really just thought that this was a cool experience. And he just thought like, there's no way that there's people who are excited to be in a DUI checkpoint at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I may have had to make a phone call, even though I had nothing to drink.
Yeah, I mean, and from the cop's perspective, like the person who gets talkative is the idiot who thinks they're going to talk themselves out of a DUI.
Oh yeah,
not the interested person, because nobody is in a positive and interested mood except for you at 2 a.m. at the DUI checkpoint. So it's hysterical.
Yeah, I didn't see it that way at the time, and so from now on, I'll just be polite and quiet. And no, I've had nothing to drink. You can test me. I don't care.
Right.
But it was very funny for me at the time because I'm on my way home. I'm like, you're an idiot, Nick. Why are you trying to talk this cop up when he's got a line of cars behind? That's just me. And I'm doing it right now because I want to ask you about referrals, because I know that they've been a major key to your firm's success. And I know that referrals can be such a huge part of a law firm's success. So what advice can you give law firms on building up a strong referral network?
So, okay, here's the thing for me. Having interviewed thousands of lawyers, in person, online, Facebook groups, whatever, like 99% of us start with no money with our firms, or like one credit card that you can max out. So it's really hard to run a really good marketing campaign because you might need to spend a bunch of money on copywriters and ad spend and landing pages and whatever else. Whereas like you can get your local bar people, you can contact your local bar, you can contact your state for emails, whatever it is, and just start like contacting people to go have lunch or go to happy hour or go to the cigar bar or go play golf, like whatever it is that you enjoy. And you'll see what comes from it. So it's cheaper, although it will take more of your time. But from my standpoint, like especially at the beginning, you're going to find potential referral sources. You're also going to find mentors. You're also going to find like buddies that you can bond with in the trenches, like it's war, as both of you hate your firms for the first several years. So there's like so many social benefits to this, just as much as the marketing. From the marketing standpoint, like figure out who your ideal client is, and then figure out who your ideal client's going to go to, and then try to network with those people. And then ultimately like find the people that check those boxes that you also genuinely like. Like that is the ultimate goal of networking, is hanging out with who you want to hang out with and doing what you want to do with them. But like you're going to kiss a lot of frogs until you get there. So just commit to the frog kissing.
Commit to the frog kissing. I got to say, you give some of the most practical and applicable advice of anybody I've had on this show. So I really can't thank you enough. Where can our listeners go? Oh, I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
No, thank you for saying that. Because like I hate my book. You know, I wrote it, I edited it, I went through the whole thing. So like I get nothing from the book, but obviously other people do, because like what you said, I try to be very kindly direct, you know, radical candor or whatever.
I love it. Like I've even learned stuff right now that I'm going to apply in my life about like blocking my time, because I have lately no intentionality with the way that I work. So maybe I'll do it.
Wait, hold on. We're doing a quick coaching second then.
Let's do it.
Here's how you're going to do it. Put it on your calendar. Like go to your calendar right now and find however many weeks ahead it looks to be an easy week. And then like, boom, I'm going to start my time audit for these weeks. Boom, I'm going to take an hour and really go through my calendar and look at what do I enjoy doing? What do I not enjoy doing? Like that's the way to start this, is just put it on your freaking calendar and then just honor your calendar. Like once you get your calendar set up, You just do what's there, and it is so wonderful.
It's on my calendar. Time audit.
Wonderful. Because sometimes it's like, go get a massage, hang out in the pool, play with my kid. Like, you can calendar whatever you want, and nothing else will take that time if you are really honest to your calendar's limitations.
I do honor my calendar. That is something that I can say I am very good at. If it's on my calendar, I will show up. I will 1000% be there on time, but I need to put it on my calendar in order to do the second part. I need to do the thing in order to get the reward.
There we go.
So where can our listeners go to find your book, and where can they go if they want to connect with you further?
Sure. So the book is Love Your Law Firm. It's on Amazon. It is amazingly cool how they will fulfill and ship. Like, you can get it to your house super quickly, which is awesome. And then if you want to connect with me, as far as I know, there are 2 Jordan Ostroffs in the world. There's one who's like a really good salesperson in Boston, and then there's me. So like, if you type in Jordan Ostroff on any social media platform, the one in the Hawaiian shirt is probably me. I've also got my website, jordanostroff.com, OSTROFF. And I'm here, and I genuinely love helping other attorneys avoid burnout and aggravation and run firms that they genuinely love. It becomes a lot of fun.
I can tell that you definitely mean that.
It's the shirt.
Yeah, the shirt is very earnest. So Jordan, I'd like to thank you for joining me on the show today, and thank you to all of our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we will be back with another episode of Everything Except the Law soon. Be sure to check out previous episodes of our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. Links to everything covered in today's conversation can be found in the description of this episode, including a link to order the book. We hope to see you next time, everyone.
Thanks so much for having me.